Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Kechidori.
Hi there, my name is Yeukai Kechidori, and thank you so much for joining me on this very special episode. Now, on the show, I'm joined by a very special guest, Elaine Slatter, who's going to be sharing with us all things branding. Now, before I bring Elaine on the show, I just want to encourage you to subscribe so that you don't miss any of our future shows. Now, here's a question for you. Have you ever caught yourself wishing you could have a better online presence, or you want to do things different so you can attract better quality customers, those that helps you to achieve your goal, that resonate with you? Well, if you have, you're in the right place, because Elaine has been helping business owners for over 30 years solving this very same problem. Elaine, thanks again for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me, Yeukai.
Incredible.
Great to be here.
It's awesome. You know, when I received the profile that we're going to be talking about branding today, I got really excited because not too long ago, one of my attendee to one of my seminars said, you know what, I'm struggling with branding. Is there a quick way or a solid way of doing this? And I thought, you know what, you are not the only person who is struggling with this. Let's find some guests who will help you with that. And then, of course, you appear. So we are thrilled to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Now, very briefly, would you tell us a bit about yourself, what you've done, and how you got to where you are today?
Well, thank you. Yes, I am also a British citizen, and I emigrated to Canada.
Yes.
So I've lived here for very many years. I actually went to university here in Canada. And although I worked for companies like Ferrari in the UK for a very brief period, most of my working life has been in Canada. And I worked for a US-based international company for over 30 years and did all their branding and marketing in Canada, and then did international assignments for them as well. And at the end, I actually ran the Canadian division for them, and that was a $40 million piece of business. But my heart has always been in marketing. So when I left that company in 2012, I wanted to make a difference and help entrepreneurs, because I kept getting questions about how to launch, how to brand, how to market. So I decided to focus in that whole area.
Incredible. One of the things I love about what you do is you have gone on to create a training. In fact, you wrote a book for the future entrepreneurs, helping them with how to get started. Talk to us about that.
Well, the book called Fabulous Fempreneurship is geared really for women. I mean, it's suitable for everybody, but it was mainly for women, because when I started my business, I thought actually I'd be working with a lot of men, because the business I was in was industrial products. But then as I was networking, I realized it was the women that needed help. They were anxious to launch their businesses, but they just didn't know how to do it, what the steps were. So I wrote a book to explain all the steps, not in in everyday language, so that they would understand that you do this first, then you do that, so on and so forth. Because if you do it in a logical sequence, then you'll have a better result at the end of it. So, I mean, you do have to start with a plan. Now, the plan changes a lot along the way as your business. Your products might change, your kind of customer might change, but you have to have a plan of where you're going to start. So you need to kind of lay that all out. And that's the start actually of your branding, when you lay out your plan of what you're going to sell, whether it's a product or a service, how you're going to sell it, who's going to buy it, all those nitty gritty things. That helps you with your brand.
It is true. You know, I meet a lot of business owners that are doing a lot of things, and they seem to struggle to get ahead. And when I talk to them, I find they're doing all the right things, but it's not in a sequence that is correct. And in your book, you show people exactly what to do first, second, third, so that they will get success. So if you are listening, you know, it's great to have a system, because it will ensure you get that success you want at the end of the journey. Now, you've worked with some amazing brands like Ferrari, you've mentioned. Tell us some of the results you've gotten for yourself and for other people.
Well, actually, I only worked for Ferrari for a very, very short time. So I can't really, that was my very first job. So I can't say I did much with the branding of Ferrari. But for when I was in the industrial space, we had very innovative products, and we absolutely did an amazing job launching those products in Canada. But then, you know, companies make mistakes. This is a large company, and it made a mistake. It launched its product way too quickly.
Right.
And so although the concept was revolutionary and the product was amazing in the concept, when it actually came down to using that product, it blew up quite a bit. Well, that's not a very good thing. So what do you do when your brand, which has been around for like 70 years, suddenly all the customers are getting really upset, because it doesn't matter how good you were in the past. If you have a product launch that is a disaster, and I would say this one was close to being a disaster, your brand is implodes. It doesn't matter if it's Tylenol or if it's Coca-Cola or if it's Ford or whoever it is. Like, if you launch a product and it doesn't do well because it has issues, sometimes restoring the brand is the biggest thing you can do.
Right.
So that's what we did in Canada. It wasn't the same in the United States, but in Canada we said, okay, Mr. Customer, if your machine is imploding, we're sending out a new one tomorrow. No questions asked. We'll get the paperwork sorted out later, but we're going to send you a new one. If that one didn't work, we sent them another one, because in the background, the company was fixing all the technical issues, right?
Right.
So what we did in that particular case was absolutely save the brand. I mean, it's still a great brand, still going on many, many years later. But that's a core thing that you need to think about with your brand, that you can develop the most fabulous brand. Another one that is nothing that I had to do with, but illustrates the point, is Lululemon. Lululemon is an international brand of yoga pants, and they launched a product that had see-through yoga pants, and they were expensive. So the market just trashed Lululemon. Well, they had to restore their brand. That was a big part of what they had to do. And now they've branched out and they've included other products in their brand, and they were able to restore their brand. So I think when you're branding, you have to think that it isn't just your product or service, but who you're launching it to, and who is going to use these products, and make sure that you connect the two together, your product or service with the audience, and make sure that connection is totally solid. Customer service, their experience buying your brand should be number one in your mind. Always, always, always think of it from the customer perspective, whether it's your online website, whether it's the promotions you're doing. Make it easy for the customer to buy from you, because the worst thing is that you don't do it right. And then your customer, what you don't know is your customer will say, don't buy XYZ brand. Their customer service is awful or the quality is terrible. You're much better off to buy ABC brand, which is your competitor. So the word of mouth gets out and you may not even realize it. In the background, your brand is either soaring or it's nosediving. You can't, unless you perform everything the right way along the path, that you take care of your customers, you respond to their emails, you respond to their concerns, that when you ask them for a Google recommendation, they're going to give you 5 stars right away because the experience has been phenomenal. Even if there was a blip in the product, if the experience was good, they will overlook that. So always focus on the customer experience with your brand.
Awesome. One of the things I find is people have a somewhat different view of what brand actually is. Maybe a misconception. Are you okay to clarify some of the misconception you've come across when it comes to creating a lasting brand for business owners, specifically in the time that we live today?
Well, that's a very good question because branding really is the purpose of your business. It's not really about your product, it's the purpose. Why are you selling what you're selling, whether it's a service or a product? Because there are tons of competitors, whatever space you're in. If you look at the sports gear space, for example, you've got Nike, you've got Puma, you've got Fila, you've got Adidas, you've got Under Armour, you've got 100 different brands. Why do some rise to the top and others kind of don't do so well? So if you take a brand like Nike, Nike was one of the first brands, I think, to associate people with the product.
Right.
So this is going back a long time ago. But this is, one of the shoes that they made, the Nike shoes, were called Air Jordan. And they were Michael Jordan, who was a very famous basketball player at the time.
Yeah.
He endorsed the Air Jordans. But it wasn't just him, with the signature of Air Jordan on the Nike. It was a whole story around Michael Jordan, the way he played, the soaring to heights. So they made storytelling a part of the brand and made the person who was endorsing the product a real live person, just like Serena Williams in tennis, or you take Tiger Woods in golf or Rory McIlroy in golf. They were all Nike ambassadors, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
So they weren't just names, they made a story around that person. So I think when you're branding, you have to make a story around who you are and who you help and how you help them. Because a lot of people come to me and say, well, I sell financial products and my target audience is everybody, because everybody, that has a job, has money, will want to invest, or they need help with insurance or mortgages or whatever. But I said, yes, but what makes you stand out? What makes you different?
Right.
So what you do is get the company to talk about them, how they started, what's the core of their being, why they want to do this, sell this kind of product, how they want to help their customers, the whole story part of the brand. And that's what, all the brand marketers will talk to you about. You have to have a story. So I'll take a case of this client of mine who's in financial services.
Yeah.
She was married, separated, had a difficult situation, and found herself, in very difficult circumstances. But so the whole core of her being and her company is helping people get out from under the difficult situations, whether it's debt or not having the right life insurance, or so it's helping people by educating them. So they don't just sell a product like life insurance or a mortgage or investment products. They actually sit down and work it all out with the family, not in a pushy way, but because that's the core of who they are. They're educating. So their whole branding was on a house. We made a house,
Right.
a financial house, has a foundation, because if you have the foundation right, you have a good start.
Awesome.
And then you build up the house, right? And you do it systematically from the foundation up. You don't start with wealth, because when you're young, you don't have wealth, right?
All right.
You start at the very, very bottom by making a core foundation, making sure that you have your insurance in place, your wills and power of attorneys in place. Like, that's got nothing to do with what she sells, but she's adamant about educating people to do everything the right way, understanding debt, good debt, bad debt. And that's all before you start investing for your retirement. So she's building a house. So all along, what we're doing is taking elements of the house and doing blog posts and videos and education and seminars all on the house, the foundation of the house. And the most powerful way to brand is probably to do a 1 minute or 2 minute video. And this is what Joanna, the name of my client, did.
Yeah.
She had a woman whose husband died when he was 46, very young. She had 2 children. She was a student at university herself, so she wasn't earning any money. And he died without a will. Okay? So she was in desperate situation right from the get-go. She had no access to any bank accounts. She didn't know if he had any kind of group insurance or anything. She knew nothing about his financials. So she went on a video and explained all that. And Joanna uses that at the beginning of every seminar, because it was told very simply in this lady's words. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't a branding video. It was just simply this lady's sad story of what happened to her when her husband died at 45, 46. And I'm telling you, I've been in the seminars that most people at the end of the video have tears streaming down their face, because that can happen to anybody, right? And it gets the people who are attending the seminar thinking, do I have a will? Do I have a power of attorney? Do I know where all my financials are? Do I have life insurance? Does my husband? Like, it gets the thinking process going. And that's what you want to do, because if this lady was able to help this poor woman who had no money because she was a student with 2 kids, she didn't, how was she going to pay her rent? How was she going to feed her kids? All that kind of stuff. And Joanna helped find different people to help this lady. So even if you are not in that situation yourself, and you attended a seminar where they were talking about that kind of thing, wouldn't you want to call them? Because you know that they care. You know that their brand is all about helping and educating. It was nothing at all to do with the products, because that comes later. That comes later, after that. So you have to establish that rapport. So she got so many people calling her after that. Some of them might have had everything in place, but they weren't sure. Where would they check? Where would they do that? So now she has somebody right at the very beginning who trusts her, because she isn't selling anything right from the very beginning. She's just helping.
Wow. It makes perfect sense. Absolutely. So by clarifying your story or your journey is really the very first step that you need to do if you're to create a brand. Am I hearing
That's
this
right.
correct? What do you do then after that? Maybe before we jump into that, if say somebody who's listening right now is struggling in putting up their story, are there any specific steps maybe you could guide them in coming up with that story of their journey?
Well, I think at the very beginning, you sort of, when you're selling a service or a product, there had to be something that made you want to sell that product or sell that service.
Right.
You are solving a problem for somebody when you're launching your business. So that's what you need to bring out in your story. What your invention is or what your service is and how it is helping people. No, it could be refurbing furniture, it could be renting out furniture. There's a gap in the marketplace that you have seen to either develop a new product or create a service. So you've got to think about the story of, what was that light bulb moment that made you think, hey, if I do this, then I can solve this problem for that kind of client. So I think that's where you start. You think about your own journey that led you to the launch of your product or your service and who you were helping when you designed that product or service. And now that's where you go. Like my dad was an entrepreneur. He had a large tea and coffee manufacturing company. But the big part of his story was how he started. He was 14, 15 years old working in a grocery store mixing teas for customers, right?
Right.
And then he realized that if he took a little bit of this tea and that tea and the other tea and mix them all together, he would have a better tea. So then he thought, then his customers liked what he was doing. And then he entered a competition. Then he realized that he could, this is going back a long time, he would sell his own mixtures from his bicycle house to house. And he mixed them in his mother's kitchen. That's how he got started. Well, I'm telling you, that is an amazing story. And then from the bicycle, he went to a van. Then from the van, he started, he bought a dry cleaning facility and changed the whole thing into tea and coffee manufacturing. And that company is still alive today in the UK. And it's probably 80 years old, the company. But there's a guy who had an idea that came from humble beginnings, but he had an idea that if he mixed something together, he would make his customers really happy and they would have a better cup of tea. That whole huge business started from that one little idea. And he knew what he could do to make it different, and he knew who his customers were going to be. And that's a true story.
Amazing. Truly, it is an incredible story. Even now that the company is still going, truly is an incredible story.
Yeah.
So what would...
And that's sold under the brand of Dorset Tea.
Dorset Tea.
Yeah. And I think you can find it online. And my father's story is online in the Dorset Tea. Yeah. Incredible.
Absolutely incredible. Now, moving on to, helping that person maybe who's been trying to create a brand for a while, but seemingly nothing is happening. They think they figure out their story. What would you say do next?
Okay, you have to figure out why you're different, because in every single area there's competition. And if you said to me, but I don't have any competition, then I would say, well, maybe you don't want to launch this business because maybe there isn't a customer for what you're trying to invent. So usually there's something similar, right? Or somebody does it a different way than you. So what you have to do is look at the closest competitors you have, and then you have to sort of dissect what they're doing, not too deeply, but just get an idea of what you do differently. And that's what you take. You take the thing that you do differently and you explode it.
Right.
And that means consistently showing why you're different, why your solution or your product is different.
Amazing.
And attach that difference to the kind of customer who's going to use it. Like, for example, right now, organic food, organic skincare, everything without chemicals is big. So you'll see the rise of brands, even name brands like Kellogg's or Nestle's, any of those big brands, they also are buying up these organic brands because even they realize that, okay, you might be buying sugar pop cereal today, but tomorrow you may be having something completely different. Your snacks might be different. Your cereal might be different. You might not even be using cereal. You know, the more, so they're following the science of nutrition and seeing where that's going. And they will then sort of segue their brand into a different direction. And a good example right now, there's two brands in the United States. I'm not sure if you have them in the UK, but there's Uncle Ben's rice.
We do.
And there's Aunt Jemima's pancakes. Okay?
Yeah.
Those two brands are going to completely rebrand their products because those connotations are not good. With all the Black Lives Matter, all the rising in the United States in particular, about, racial, it doesn't matter whether it's racial Black, racial Asian, if it's racial Muslim, there's racism in the world. Instead of treating everybody as an individual, there's still around it a lot of misconception. And so brands that have like Uncle Ben's or Aunt Jemima are looking at the concept of the brand and relating it to the customers who are going to buy it and the general public that says that's very demeaning to have the Aunt Jemima and the Uncle Ben's. So we need to do something about it. And they're totally looking at rebranding those two products.
Amazing. Elaine, you're sharing some amazing information, and I'm taking notes on this one because it's so good. It really is. And I'm hoping you are also taking notes if you're listening and watching this wherever you are, because this is really life-changing. Imagine if you could apply one or two of these and your business skyrocket, what that would mean to you. And I know you're doing great, taking notes just as I am. Now, let's talk about the mindset that a business owner needs to have when it comes to branding. Is this an overnight success? How much time does it take? Let's talk about maybe consistent. What needs to happen for one to create a long-lasting brand?
Well, I think you first have to start with the customer. Because, every single brand has to have a customer, what we call a customer avatar, which is, yes, you may sell to a lot of different kinds of customers, but if you can hone in on just one type, is it young children? Is it young moms? Is it the business professional? Who are you targeting your product and service to, the main person? And then you dissect that customer avatar. What does that look like? What are their hobbies? What do they dress like? What do they like to do for fun? Whatever it is. And then you have a picture in your mind of that customer avatar. And then when you're creating your brand, you're directing it. What would that customer like to see?
Right.
So if you're, say, selling to women, it's completely different than selling to guys. So if you're the Dollar Shave Club and you're targeting men, you're going to have a whole different way of targeting them than you are if you are selling a service or a product to women. For example, it could be organic skincare, totally different. Now, organic skincare actually might have male customers, but they're not your main target because they're not the main people that are buying them. If they are, they're buying it because their wife has bought it or the girlfriend's bought it. So it's sort of a secondary market. But then you could develop a whole line of male skincare products. But you would start with the women one, the ones that are targeted to women, because that's your core customer avatar, and you understand that 100%. And then you can segue into a different customer avatar, which is the guy, and then your branding would change when you're targeting the guy, because he's a different kind of customer. He's not going to spend hours doing his face. You know what I mean? So even though his skin would look great if he was using these products, you would brand it differently to the guy than you would to the girl. Absolutely. And the same with financial products too. Like this Joanna, she's targeting women because they know the least about financial products. So she's targeting a core group that might take longer to convert, but it's a bigger group because they don't have people like her to help them. Because most financial advisors talk to the male in the family and their verbiage is male oriented. So if she's targeting a woman in her branding, she has to change the language completely because the women don't understand the guy language around money. They just don't. They see it in a whole different perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's the core of branding and how you get started. It's finding the very basis of it, being consistent on what you're delivering. I mean, you're going to develop new products along the way, but make sure you go back and see if the customer avatar is the same for the new products or services that you're designing. And if it isn't, then you have to figure out who the new customer avatar is and how you can reach them. Whether it's social media, whether it's your online presence, whether it's advertising, whatever, seminars, whatever you're doing, you have to be consistent so that when somebody thinks of you and your product, they know what your brand is all about. They know, for example, when they talk to Joanna, she's not about selling financial products. She's about helping you sort out your financial mess, you know, or starting you because you've never had anybody help you. So it's entirely different than the large, you know, like a bank doing financial services. Totally different concept.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Well, Elaine, thank you so much. We are coming toward the end of our time here together. For those who wants to carry on learning with you, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me online. My main company is X, like the letter X, the letter L, consultinggroup.com. And from there, it leads you everywhere you want to go. I write a lot of blogs to help people with online presence, e-commerce, videoing, what to do. And it's all for people who are starting out that don't have a big budget. What can they do? And so I do blog a lot. And from there, you can also get to my book, which is on a different website.
Awesome. Awesome. We are living in interesting times.
Yes.
And we have different challenges. But you've been in business for a long time. What would you say is a secret that, you know, if you could reveal it to everyone, people will do even better in dealing with the current situation?
I think the main thing, especially in this situation, but always, is be in touch with your customers. Make sure they understand that you care what their problem is and how you're going to help them. Be patient with them. Follow up. If you say, I'm going to do it on Wednesday, and something happens and you can't do it on Wednesday, let them know. You know what I mean? Keep the communication lines open all the time. Do what you say you're going to do and follow up properly on email or voicemail or phone or whatever way you're communicating so that your customer knows that you really care about them. That's the whole thing. Your customers want to know that you care about them.
Incredible. Absolutely. If you care about them and you over deliver, they won't go anywhere. They will stay
That's
with
right.
even if you make some mistakes, they will stick
That's
with
right.
That's been my experience. Well, with that
That's
said,
totally it.
thank you again for being here on this show.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me as a guest. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Incredible. There you have it, guys. If you've got any more questions, just click the link below. You'll be taken to Elaine's website. And also, you can ask any questions in our group. And remember, you can ask anything that relates to any of our guests that we've had over the past and those that we're going to have in future, or you can make any suggestion that you want to have on the show. With that said, wish you all the best, and I know you're going to implement one or two things that we talked about here today. Have a great day, and I look forward to catching up with you very soon. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.